We'll get things going here a couple of minutes early tonight as we have severe thunderstorms and flash flooding. In fact, we've got severe thunderstorm watches up for about 1,500 miles of geography from the northeast down to the southeast and then west across the Gulf states. It's like one continuous line of severe thunderstorm watches. We'll check out the latest radars. There's been a lot of flash flooding around in the areas of western Connecticut and also in parts of northern New Jersey and pushing up into the Hudson Valley at the moment. We'll be talking about this. And of course, we have to wait for the system one more day before it gets out of the way, and then we get into some September weather across much of the eastern part of the United States. So that's all coming up tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code SUMMER 2024, and if you do, you'll get 10% off. And here I am. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Last I heard, Mr. Rayo was without power. So that was about an hour and a half ago, and I haven't heard back since. So I'm assuming that he continues to be without power. So if he does get power back, then he'll join us in. Otherwise, I'm flying solo tonight. So let's get started. Before I do start, let's just say a big hello to everybody on the chat board. Welcome to tonight's show, and hopefully you had a really nice weekend. And welcome to those of you who are watching in the background and not on the chat board to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35 p.m., the occasional Friday and Saturday. If there's a storm going on and if there is an extra show or two that we'll add, we will, of course, let you know that ahead of time. Subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like the show, hit the like button. So let's get to it. I'm going to start off. Before I go to the radars, I'm going to just start off with the satellite loop because I think this is a really important to take notice of. And that is the fact that on the far right, we have Hurricane Ernesto, which actually was downgraded to a tropical storm overnight, but it's gotten better organized during the day. You can see there's a fairly well-defined eye. And it was upgraded back to a hurricane. Top winds are 75 miles an hour and heading toward the northeast. Now, the problem here is that this hurricane has not gotten out of the way yet. And it's going to take another day once it moves south of Newfoundland sometime later tomorrow or tomorrow night. It will finally allow this upper trough. And if you look at the loop from this afternoon, you can see the rotation and these spokes, or, sort of like on a bicycle wheel, one coming around after another, and of course, moving into an area of daytime heating and a warm front that pushed up to the north. That's set up for all kinds of trouble today, particularly in western Connecticut, which got absolutely slammed with rainfall. I'm going to see if the Weather Service put up any kind of statement here with regards to rainfall amounts there, because we got a lot happening here. They don't have anything yet to see if they've got a public information statement. The last one was at 5:04. Okay, so here's some of the rainfall amounts, which were really extreme. Near Monroe, Connecticut, Fairfield County. Now, this is the area that seems to be coming up as the one that had got hit the hardest today, and has had some real problems. They had to evacuate people. 9.98 inches as of 4 p.m. this afternoon. Reading Ridge, 8.41. Newtown, I'm sorry, 7.89. Norwalk, Connecticut, 6.87. Stamford, 6.43. Danbury, 3.68. I'm just going to jump around to a couple of others. Danbury was 3.68. Westport, 2.91. In Westchester County, New Rochelle, 3.14. So these are just the beginnings of the rainfall amounts, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot more before this is all said and done. But Ernesto has to get out of the way. The rotation just continues, but the actual axis of the trough has not moved, and it can't move because of the hurricane out to the east. So once that uh, gets to southern portions of Newfoundland or offshore southernmost Newfoundland, then we should finally see this trough move eastward. But at the end of the day, it's going to mean that we're going to see probably another round of downpours and thunderstorms, uh, perhaps some overnight, but again on Monday. And I think we're going to see risks for severe weather and the potential for some flash flooding. But that should be the last of it. And then we'll get into that drier air that's coming down from Canada. And this is a very impressive high that is coming down for this time of year, with pressures up at around 1028 millibars. That's unusually high for the middle part of August. So we're going to see dry air spreading out for areas pretty much from everywhere east of the Mississippi. And that dry air is actually going to make it even into the deep south. And down here in the south, when the season's first cold front clears and you get into the dry air and the dew points drop into the 50s everywhere, especially in the mountains where I'm going to probably get lows down in the 50s, there is mass celebration that goes on. But you notice on the satellite loop, we've got a ton of lightning strikes happening from upstate New York down through Virginia into North Carolina, then sweeping across central Georgia and in through southern Alabama. And as I said, we've got almost continuous stretch of severe thunderstorm watches, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, mostly central and eastern Virginia, central North Carolina, South Carolina, the northern portion of it, and then the southern half of Georgia into southern Alabama. All of that long area under a severe thunderstorm watch at the moment. We still have extreme excessive heat warnings and heat advisories for the central and western Gulf states and back up into the southern plains and the lower Mississippi Valley. Out in the west, we have areas of red flag warnings in Nevada and Southern California and Arizona, also in southeastern Idaho, still dealing with some air quality issues with regards to wildfire smoke, but it's not quite as widespread as it had been back about a week to 10 days ago. So at least there's been some improvement there. We also have some uh, issues in northern Minnesota. And actually, just to go back to the satellite loop, you can see there's like a milky whiteness up here across the northern plains and into southernmost Canada near the border. So that's all wildfire smoke that is coming down out of Canada and moving southeastward. So it'll be interesting to see whether that has some impact with the northwest flow, if some of that smoke is going to be coming in to the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. We've been dealing with some of that over the last number of days. We've actually been dealing with it even in parts of the Southeast U.S. With some wildfire smoke. All right, let's go to the radar because, as I said it's pretty busy, and particularly the radar out around the out of Upton on Long Island. So we have there were about half a dozen flash flood warnings that were up in western Connecticut, now also up in central Connecticut, and that includes Hartford. And we're seeing some heavy downpours and thunderstorms. This area has made very little progress today. It just pretty much sat in western Connecticut for about 4 or 5 hours. That first batch has finally moved to the east, but it's in central Connecticut and kind of pushing up into south central Massachusetts. And now we have some other big thunderstorms and heavy rains and some severe thunderstorm warnings in northern New Jersey. And you see all these green boxes here. These are all flash flood warnings. They've now extended themselves into the Hudson Valley. Just to be a little more specific here, uh, from the Weather Service, I'm just going to jump to their um, page, to their homepage on my other screen, just to see. So we have them up for Fairfield County. Flash flood emergencies issued for central Fairfield County toward northern New Haven counties. We have The same here. We have a flash flood warning for central Fairfield County and central New Haven County, and then a flash flood emergency being issued. Flash flood warnings also up for southeastern Bergen County in New Jersey, northeastern Bergen County, Hudson County, southeastern Union County, Bronx County in southeastern New York, Manhattan in southeastern New York, Richmond, Staten Island County in southeastern New York, Rockland County, southern Westchester County. That's until 10:15 tonight. Just checking here if there's others that I might have missed. Also, we could add Orange County, Passaic County. This is from an earlier flash flood warning that was issued at 5:46 p.m. Eastern Time for northwestern Bergen, Passaic County, Orange County, western Putnam County, Rockland, and northern Westchester County. So pretty much a lot of Upton's coverage area here is under flash flood warnings. And of course, we've got some severe thunderstorm warnings in the mix. And of course, if you're watching this, the time right now of this live broadcast is 7:43 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're watching this on a replay, obviously you're seeing something that's dated. So please go to weather.gov to your local National Weather Service office to make sure you have the latest weather information regarding any severe weather and flash flooding that is going on in your neck of the woods. Now, I'm going to bring up, let's go to the Fort Dix radar uh, from Mount Holly. And we could see the southern end of this. So there's not much going on now here at all in central and south Jersey. It's all northern New Jersey and points north and east. And you see that big cell there that is now into into eastern Bergen County and moving over Manhattan and into the Bronx. So certainly the flash flood warning is justified. The same when you have some heavy downpours and some thunder now further north in the Hudson Valley, up in Putnam County, southern Dutchess County, up near Poughkeepsie as well, and some stray cells back still in northeastern Pennsylvania. We've got some other thunderstorms to look at to the south, so I'm going to bring up the Dover radar and we'll take a look at what's going on further south. And we've got some very, very strong thunderstorms in eastern Maryland and the southern part of the Delmarva Peninsula. Those look like they're heading into southern Delaware. We have some heavy thunderstorms and flash flood warnings just north and west of Baltimore. Also near Lancaster in Pennsylvania, in south central PA. We're seeing some hefty thunderstorms. Harrisburg is now out of it. Philadelphia not into it at the moment. Allentown is seeing some storms around in their area. Also further south into southeast Virginia, we're seeing some thunderstorms on the southern edge of this particular radar view. Let's try. Um, I think it's LWX for yep, for Wakefield, Virginia. So Washington, D.C., not seeing much of anything at the moment, although there's a hefty line of storms east of I-81, east of Harrisonburg, to the west of Charlottesville, and to the west of Warrenton, moving eastward. So a lot, very just a really busy radar here. And again, pointing out, we say it oftentimes in the summertime when we're looking at the WPC's rainfall forecast map, and they're forecasting 1 to 2 inches of rain, or 2.5 inches, or whatever it is. That in these types of situations, they can only give you sort of a broad brush view of general rainfall on a big map like that across the entire United States. You always have to bear in mind in situations like this that given the convective nature of what we're dealing with, you could easily wind up with double the forecast amounts. And from the numbers I gave you earlier of what's gone on in Western Connecticut, we're talking more than triple the forecast amounts. So always have that in the back of your mind when you're looking at a situation like this, where you've got a ton of tropical air. There were extensive pressure falls going on across eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey earlier this afternoon. So that kind of was a tip off that there was going to be some big problems late this afternoon and this evening. And indeed, that has been the case. And you can see there's also some strong storms and flash flooding going on in parts of central New York to the east of Syracuse. We've got two flash flood boxes over there, and also some flash flood warnings up in northeastern Pennsylvania, and one looks like it's right over Binghamton, or so in that area. So again, this is a very, very active day. Storms, clusters of some thunderstorms down into southeastern Virginia. We have some clusters in North Carolina with a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings there. Southern Georgia, we've got a sort of an east-west line of storms that are setting off some severe thunderstorm warnings across southern Georgia and back into southern Alabama, south of Birmingham, and that area continues to sink to this well south of Birmingham, in fact, and that area continues to sink to the south. Also seeing some strong thunderstorms and some severe weather in parts of Arkansas, the northwestern part, and in a cluster that's moving into the southeastern part. Some other downpours going on in the west, in the Rockies, in the Wasatch, and then pushing up into Idaho and into Montana with just a couple of isolated severe thunderstorm warnings that are up in that area. So the SPC, the Storm Prediction Center, they upgraded this morning, and it was the right thing to do, pushing the slight risk all the way up through New Jersey into the Hudson Valley, the marginal risk a little bit further north from there, and then running it straight south into southeast Virginia, North and South Carolina, central and South Georgia, central and South Alabama, central and South Mississippi, and then swinging up through Arkansas into eastern Oklahoma and southeastern Kansas, the marginal risk that's going on in the Rockies. I have not seen any tornado warnings, even though they did put up a 2% probability of tornadoes from northeast Virginia up into the lower Hudson Valley and into the Catskills and everybody in between. But so far, I have not seen any tornado warnings. Now, for tomorrow, SPC has actually extended this marginal risk area now all the way up into southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire. And on the south side, it goes down into Virginia and much of eastern North Carolina. Wouldn't shock me if we wind up seeing a little slight risk being added to this area. We've also got a marginal risk across northern Florida, a marginal risk in Louisiana, and then a large area of marginal risk in Montana and Wyoming and Utah, and then a small area of slight risk that extends down into northeastern Colorado. And at least for now, we have a less than 2% probability of tornadoes for tomorrow. And then I think just to reinforce the fact that there's not going to be a whole lot going on after tomorrow, except for down East Maine and the coastal areas of North, South Carolina, Georgia, down into Florida, which is an area in general thunderstorms. But if you notice, everybody else, you got to go back to the Dakotas, to Nebraska, to Kansas to get into any kind of general thunderstorm activity and the marginal risk running up the Western Plains and back up into uh, Montana. So this whole area in here, all of this, okay, uh, this is going to be the area that's going to get into all this drier air that's coming down out of Canada. And as I said earlier, it's going to be pushing pretty far to the south into, at the very least, it's going to get into the northern halves of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. It might even, some of that drier air may even bleed down a bit further south. It's a little early, but you know, these systems come when they come and you just enjoy it. Okay. It's 4 or 5 days of low humidity. And in this particular case, we're talking also, especially for the areas to the north, where temperatures are going to be running below average for this time of year. So we might even see some 50s for lows in Philadelphia, New York City, maybe get down to the upper 50s for a night or two this coming week. Now, this is a front end loaded map because after tomorrow, there's probably not going to be any rain to deal with. And of course, this is on top of what's already fallen. And again, give you that little footnote there about the fact that whatever they're forecasting in terms of amounts, you can easily in a heavier thunderstorm get double or triple the amount. So we're talking anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half plus from northern Maine right down to southeastern Virginia with some patches of an inch and a half plus here and there. Also, we're seeing up to at least a few inches over the next 7 days across Florida. This front getting further south means that Florida gets in line to having to deal with some tropical moisture for at least several days. Also, seeing some areas in the southwest and up in the Rockies where we're talking about 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter of precipitation of rain over the next 7 days, and everybody else is pretty much either some few hundredths or a tenth of an inch or maybe a quarter of an inch. And of course, where you don't see any coloring at all, that is 7 days of no rain. And that goes well south into Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And after tomorrow, we're going to see that white area expand to the east. WPC, a moderate risk. They just added this late this afternoon. A moderate risk of flash flooding. It's already been going on in northern New Jersey to western Connecticut and the Hudson Valley. And the line kind of cuts across New York City and touches northeastern Pennsylvania. The slight risk pushes further north into upstate New York and further south into eastern Virginia and over the Delmarva Peninsula. And then you've got the slight risk, the marginal risk that goes down to South Carolina. Small area marginal risk from East Kansas to Northwest Arkansas. And then you've got the slight risk for the Southwest. Tomorrow, on top of the rain that's already fallen, it wouldn't be a shocker on day two if we wind up seeing risk. And indeed, we have, at least for now, a marginal risk for much of New England, the eastern half of New York State, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Long Island, Delaware, eastern Maryland, and eastern Virginia. Wouldn't shock me here either if they wind up adding a little bit of a slight risk. And of course, we've got a marginal risk in the southwest and pushing up into parts of the central Rockies and points further northwest from there. So, what is going on? Okay, so let's look at the upper air because, again, it's all about this trough that's now moving in the east. And I'm just backing this up a couple of days where we had uh, Ernesto when it was east of the Bahamas and southwest of Bermuda, the deep trough that ran from Nova Scotia southward. That trough pulled Ernesto northward, but it never kicked it out and accelerated it to the northeast. That first trough fell apart. Now we've got the weekend trough with this cutoff low in northern Wisconsin that's swinging eastward. And of course, with the hurricane there, as I said, that trough can't really make any kind of eastward progress until it gets toward Newfoundland. And then we have another short wave that drops down in eastern Canada that takes the east coast trough. And finally, we get some progress here. In fact, it actually has a cutoff low that drops down into upstate New York for Tuesday and Wednesday. Now, this means that I think we're going to have some cold, unstable air to deal with Tuesday and Wednesday. So we might start those days with sunshine and then go to clouds. And perhaps in areas inland north and west of the coast, we could see some scattered showers or even some low top thunderstorms that could pop up here. But it's going to be exceptionally cool air. So we could wind up here Wednesday in particular, and even to a degree on Tuesday. There are going to be areas in upstate New York that are not going to get out of the 60s. And we could see areas not too far from the coast on Wednesday as that upper low drops southward and then turns eastward, where areas because of clouds, at least because of clouds, that we could see temperatures not getting out of the 60s. So this is going to be some pretty fairly cool, chilly air that's coming down here. And then finally, that upper low and trough will pull out at the end of the week, but it's going to leave behind the dry air at least into Saturday. And then as we go into next week, I think this is where we might see, we've been saying that maybe for the last week of August or the last uh, days of August, that we could see some heat and humidity returning. And we do have some ridging building into the eastern states beginning Monday, the 26th of August, and lasting through much of next week. Okay, so that would be the week of uh, beginning Monday, the 26th, and taking us all through that week. So that'll probably be maybe the last time we see a long stretch of temperatures that at least try to get up above 90 degrees. And then eventually we get troughing back into the eastern states in the first days of September and another cool shot of dry air, and the ridge pops up in the west. So enjoy this week. You've got the whole week and maybe even into the weekend where you're not going to have humidity to talk about. And for the first time in a long time, cooler temperatures are going to take center stage. Now, here's what it looks like on the dew point loop. And again, we've got one more day to get through, which is tomorrow. Front goes through. Here come those 40 dew points in a lot of places. Everybody's going to get down into the 50s, but a lot of places are going to get down into the 40s. This is by Wednesday morning. This is for Thursday. And you see how far west it goes and also how far south it goes. The green is where we're talking about dew points at 50 or less, getting down into northern Georgia, to Alabama and Mississippi, and much of South Carolina, the inland areas of South Carolina, anyway, the northern half of the state, and central and western North Carolina, certainly in Virginia. And then we go through Thursday, we go through Friday. It starts to, the drier air becomes, maybe let's call it a little less dry, but it's still dry. Dew points in the 50s over the weekend. And then after that, we start to see the dew points begin to jump up into the 60s. And this again would be for the week of beginning Monday, August 26th. And this, I would say, this is the time period, that whole week, where we might be dealing with some hotter temperatures. And then right as we get into the end of the month, very end of the month, and the beginning of September, looks like some drier air pushes down out of Canada and say goodbye to whatever 90-degree temperatures that we might see during those last days of the month of August. So on the surface map, as we take a look, let me roll this back. There's our trough, and there's our lead trough and cold front, trying to get through, not succeeding until later tomorrow. One last batch of showers and thunderstorms. I have to, I would think that tomorrow's activity might be a little bit less than today. At least we hope so. And then here comes that big high. 1028 millibars is not too shabby for August 20th. Coming down from Hudson Bay over Lake Superior, the low dew points. Again, you can see that the GFS does generate some shower activity, not so much on Tuesday, but Tuesday night and Wednesday in upstate New York and in New England. And that's because we're talking here about a very cold, unstable air mass, certainly aloft, and we're going to see that cooler air down in the surface. Thursday looks good. The front stalling out across northern Florida means that Florida has to deal with showers and downpours from time to time this week. And then, as far as that high, I mean, it's still hanging around New York State on next Saturday. So I think we will go through next weekend. As I said, the dew points will come up, but it'll still be reasonably comfortable. And then we'll start to get into the high, positioning itself from North Carolina east out to Bermuda with a west-southwest flow starting on Monday, the 26th, and then carrying us through all of the last week of the month of August. And then we'll see if there's any kind of cold front. Now, as far as the tropics are concerned, I just want to see, because I haven't really looked too closely uh, today, but there was some indication of some of the longer range models, particularly the European beyond 10 days, where tropical waves will begin to come off rather actively uh, toward the end of the month. And the GFS is kind of showing that there are tropical waves that are coming out. At least for now, it doesn't seem to be doing anything with them. I'm just going to check the European out to 10 days. And just give me a moment here. Uh, hold on, I'm just checking. Okay. Um, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just checking to see if I had a message from Joe Rayo. He's not here. If you came on late, it's because of the fact that he lost power a couple of hours ago and still hasn't come back. The European is showing tropical waves moving off the African coast in about 9 or 10 days. So perhaps as we get toward the Labor Day holiday weekend, we might start to see tropical activity pick up once again. So let me come back full screen. I'm just going to check really quickly here, see if there's anything new. We do have, it looks like we might have some additional flash flood warnings. Let's double check here. We have flash flood warnings until 10 p.m. for Morris, north central Somerset, northeastern Hunterdon, southeastern Sussex, and east central Warren counties in northern New Jersey. So again, that's for Morris, north central Somerset, northeastern Hunterdon, southeastern Sussex, and eastern and central and east central Warren counties for New Jersey. We have. I'm just looking here. Um, for Mount Holly, this is the flash flood warning for southeastern Morris and northeastern Somerset. They said the gauge reports indicate thunderstorms producing heavy rain as the Whippany River at Morristown went into flood stage. Between 2.5 and 4 inches of rain have fallen so far. Additional rainfalls of another ½ inch to 1.5 inches possible in the Warren area. So you've got some places picking up 5.5 to 6 inches of rain. And then I'm just going to check to see if Mount Holly has any rainfall reports. I'm going to say they probably don't. And I don't see a recent public information statement, so they do not. We do also have some flash flood warnings up now for parts of northeastern Pennsylvania and into the other side of the Catskills. And as I said earlier, there's a working flash flood warning up near Binghamton. So this would be for northeastern Lackawanna County in northeastern Pennsylvania, southeastern Susquehanna County in northeastern Pennsylvania, northwestern Wayne County in northeastern Pennsylvania. Heavy rain has ended, but runoff from up to 4 inches of rain continues to cause significant flooding problems. Waters are expected to recede by late this evening. This flash flood warning is up until 11 o'clock Eastern time. Um, just looking here, Binghamton, Binghamton for northwestern Oneida County. Doppler radar indicated thunderstorms producing heavy rain between 1.5 and 3 inches has fallen, and an additional 1 to 2 inches possible in the warned area. Some of these areas just got over the flooding from Debbie, so I don't think this was well timed by Mother Nature to throw in thunderstorms like this so soon after the rains of Debbie. So, all right. Seeing everybody on the chat board. Thank you for being here tonight. It's always great to see everybody here on a nightly basis. And thanks to those of you who are watching tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is minus one Joe because of the fact that Joe's dealing with the power outage. The Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code Summer 2024, and if you do, you will get 10% off. And we'll be back tomorrow night. And of course, for today, I did do my usual 2 other videos that I do, Weather in a Minute and Weather in 5. They were up earlier today, so look for those tomorrow, along with website posts and everything else that I put out, or anything else that I put out there for tomorrow. Okay, folks, have a great night. Stay safe, and I'm sure Joe will be back with me tomorrow night. Night, everybody.